Welcome back. We're here for another Who Dat, and in this Who Dat, we're going to cover Danny Stutsman. That was requested by another one of you guys, YGC. We really appreciate the the request, and we're happy to uh, oblige and fulfill your request. So, if you hadn't already, we've been covering quite a few guys. I know the most recent was Isaiah Coe, which was another recent request. Kelvin Gilliam was also done, and Clayton Smith and Micah Bowens and Billy Bowman. I mean, a bunch of guys in the 2020 class. If you guys would like to hear anything about any different guys that are a part of that 2020 class, make sure to comment below. Let us know. Eventually, we're going to get to them, but if you'd like to hear something in the next week or two, we'll bump them to the top. So we'll get into it, and we'll go over about Danny Stutsman. Make sure to hit that like, comment, and subscribe button, and let us know what you think. So obviously, if you hadn't already known, Stutsman, he was in the 2021 class, a 3-star linebacker. He was number 406 overall guy and number 48 linebacker by 247, like their overall rating. But what I found was interesting is actually 247 has him rated as a number 180 nationally ranked player and number 21 linebacker. So 247, just them alone, their scouts like him a lot more than what the overall with Rivals and ESPN and all them. He's 6'3", 215 pounds, just a freak athlete as far as or good size, I guess you could say. He definitely came from, I'm trying to think, he was from Orlando, Florida. He played for Fountain Academy, and so he's from the southeast, the SEC country. So I'm sure his family's excited about OU's move to the SEC and getting to play the Gators and Georgia and those schools in that area. A guy, speaking of his size, but he was also extremely athletic. He played both sides of the ball in high school. These are his career stats. I mean, he had 333 total tackles, 20 sacks, 47 tackles for loss, and 8 forced fumbles. And then on the offensive side, he had 3,252 all-purpose yards and 43 touchdowns. So kind of a guy that could play all over the place. I mean, that's kind of a ridiculous amount of stats to rack up on the offense and defensive side. His dad was a former tight end at Baylor, and Baylor did offer him. So I don't know if that was really much of a decision for him or hard for him to want to be a Sooner. I would assume not. But that was probably something that he factored into his recruitment. He had offers, like I said, Baylor, Kansas State, Maryland, Minnesota, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, South Carolina, and among a bunch of other schools, not giant schools, but also not little schools. I mean, a bunch of D1 offers. I really think he was a guy that a lot of schools saw a lot of potential in him. Obviously, he played offense and defense, and so they offered him that some scouts didn't agree with, obviously, with his overall, average composite score of number 406 overall. There must have been something that a bunch of Division I schools saw that other, analysts didn't see. From what I've seen in a little bit of the tape, he seems to play really angry, a high motor. He's around the football a lot. He goes after, obviously, 8 forced fumbles, 47 tackles for loss. He's all over the field, in the backfield, going after the football. So we'll get into it. Brandon, do you want to start off with your opinion on him and what's your initial takeaway on him?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I watched a little bit of his tape before we started this episode tonight, and his dad was a tight end at Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got that athleticism to him, and he's got really, really good special teams highlights in his tape. Like, the kid's blocked 3 or 4 or 5 punts that I've seen alone, and that's probably only a senior year. So, like, in my opinion, he's a kid who's got tremendous athleticism, obviously being able to play both sides of the ball, got great height, great weight, great speed. In my opinion, he's depth, and if he wants to see the roster this year, which I mean, obviously he does, he's going to be a special teamer for at least the first couple of years, because he's got that ability to block punts, to cover kicks, to block on kicks, like for returners. I think special teams is where he's going to make his living at least from the jump, using that athleticism, using that build he has. I think special teams is where he needs to get his start. Pose, what do you got?
I agree with you. I think that's definitely going to be his starting spot. But I actually think he has a chance to see the field sooner. But I think he's going to be the kind of guy that has to, be more of a leader, be more, maybe more of a vocal leader, impress the coaches in practice, just work harder than everyone else. Not that he won't try, but like he's got to like really show that he's passionate about being on the field, and the coaches will get him out there. Obviously, we've mentioned it before. Grinch is a coach that isn't going to play just upperclassmen or just because you're more, you're a higher recruit, you're going to get more play time. He's going to play the guys that he believes are going to help his side of the ball. And I think Danny can definitely do that. I think his ceiling is high just because of the motor he has on him. A guy that is that effective on special teams isn't lazy. If you're going after the ball that hard on special teams, I bet you're going to be going the ball even extra hard when you're lining up as a linebacker. From the defensive stuff I saw on his tape, he played kind of like a Kenneth Murray. He's not really much of a pass coverage linebacker. He'll keep the shallow things in front of him with the running back, but once it gets maybe like 8 to 10 yards down the field, he ignores it. It's just behind him. And then he goes kind of just plays spy and make sure that if it's a running quarterback, they don't get anywhere past him because he's not going to let it happen. And from his highlights again, he's a guy that's going to make sure that he gets to the ball first. He's not a fan of letting anyone by him. So, I mean, his ceiling's high, but yeah, I think you're right. And his starting spot is definitely going to be a special teamer for at least a year or two.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think that will be his first step as far as seeing the field. Barring any injuries, I don't think he'll even see the field like more than 4 games this year. I really think he's going to be a guy that they're going to want to maintain the red shirt eligibility for, because when you look at the current depth in the linebacker spot, because he's projecting as a middle linebacker or like a weak side linebacker, basically every spot is too deep, like 2 players in depth at each position that are quality players or or NFL talent. I mean, you think of the guys that are there. You've got Caleb Kelly, David Owegbu, Deshaun White, Brian Asamoah, and then so like those 4 guys are right there. And but then also you've got,
Benito, kind of maybe.
well, yeah, and he's kind of more strong side, but yeah, he also plays there too. But then you also think about the guys that would be like the cleanup, getting some extra reps just because they've been in the system for now a year or two, and they're younger and they're showing some promise, is Jamal Morris. And then the guy that I really like is Shane Witter. Shane Witter, I don't know if you guys remember the spring game, he was flying all over the place, and he's a thumping linebacker. Like, he drops his shoulder on everyone. And I think he's going to clean up a lot of any spare plays that are available in close games, not blowout games. I think Shane Witter is going to kind of clean that up. So I think with that amount of depth, I think you have to take advantage of that and redshirt him, get him a full year in the system, and maybe his second year, as a redshirt freshman, he might start off on special teams because Shane Witter still be there. Owegbu, well, I don't know. It depends on Owegbu's year. I mean, he could go to the league too. You just never know. And then, you've got Deshaun White, Brian Asamoah. I know Asamoah, what is it? Well, I guess COVID, he's probably still a sophomore, I'm guessing. So there's still some depth there. But I think they're going to take advantage with a red shirt this year, barring some crazy injuries happening. But I do think long term, with a guy with a high motor, and I think we were talking about before we even got on, this is we've been hammering this in. It seems like every guy we've covered, we say the exact same thing, no matter the position. He's a freak athlete. He plays both sides of the ball in high school. He's a 2-sport athlete. It's the same thing, just different positions.
It's a theme, though. Like we've talked about it a million times, too. We've hammered that, too. There's a theme in the kids that we're recruiting now is we want freaks. like Danny Stutsman is a freak athlete who would have started at Baylor, his dad's alma mater. He would have started at the other 12 schools he was offered. The thing is, Oklahoma offers him, and he's not going to see the field his first year. If not, I mean, if he is, it's going to be special teams related. But those are the kids that we're recruiting, and that's what makes you win games. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you can't teach height, you can't teach work ethic, you can't teach
speed,
just natural born athleticism.
Yes, yeah, no, and those are the kids that we're looking for.
He's
and
kind of
you're looking.
Sorry, go ahead, bro.
No, I was going to say, I think your mic might have turned off, Jose. I mean, I can hear you. Now you're good.
So he's the kind of linebacker I think that's going to help us a lot in the transition to the SEC being so fast. And like you guys said, yes, that's kind of the mold that we're looking for overall in every defensive player now. But with the speed he has, his presence is more, going down the field. He just goes north-south. He doesn't, he's not very agile. He's not going to go sideline to sideline, but he'll make sure that nothing is, like I said earlier, no one's going to get past him if it's running. And if it's a shallow pass, it's going to stay in front of him. He's not, but he won't be chasing a guy, to the other side of the field.
And plus, as a former tight end, he obviously has some sort of speed or some sort of knowledge of offensive routes, to where in 2 years from now, where he's a starting linebacker, he can cover tight ends, going through the seam or something, or, breaking out on a drag or something. He can cover that tight end and kind of understand, I used to run these routes. I know where he's going. I can shadow this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and like we were talking about with corners, receivers turn corners, corners turn receivers. There's a little bit of an element of a one up there or a leg up. And I'm not going to lie to you. I remember when Danny Stutsman actually committed to the Sooners, I wasn't very I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I mean, whatever, he's probably just going to be more of a depth guy. But to be honest with you, looking at, his background and then what some scouts thought about him and the ability to play both sides of the ball, I'm actually more excited about him now that I've kind of learned about him a little more and watched some tape and took the time to really figure it out. That's half the fun of actually doing these videos, is I'm learning more than I already, than I knew before. And I really think this is a guy, he could be my redshirt sophomore year, could be a starter, or at least, starter in Grinch's system. He a big rotational player.
I was about to say, if Alex Grinch is recruiting you and Alex Grinch wants you a part of his defense, there's something there. There's some sort of potential there. Alex Grinch sees in his head what this kid can be, what this kid could be. And otherwise we don't offer him. So Grinch has a grand scheme in mind, using that athleticism.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that if you were to explain speed D to someone, you would show that person Stutsman tape, because just the way that he's first to the ball. Like I said earlier, he's not going to let anyone get there first, and he's going to make sure that he's going to wrap up and put you on the ground, because he doesn't like to have broken tackles on him.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm thinking about the linebacking class that are coming in. Obviously, Shane Witter was another guy. I know he's in the 2020 or 2019 class. Witter was a guy that I wasn't really excited about either. Or was he 2019, or I can't remember, but he was another guy I wasn't very excited about. And gosh, I mean, he's coming on too. And so you think about him, he's 2019. Witter, and then you've got obviously Danny Stutsman, and you've got Kobe McKenzie out there, and then Kip Lewis is already committed.
I forgot about Kobe McKenzie.
Yeah,
and Kip Lewis. Yeah, they're there though.
And then you're still recruiting out of Omaha. You're recruiting that Devin Jackson guy that we talked about a couple videos ago. Great linebacking prospect. The linebacking is going to get a lot better for the Sooners than it needs to be, because that's the weakest spot in the defense, I think, that middle linebacker spot. But I mean, with the amount of talent, you get them a couple years in the system, I think it's going to work out well. But I really think the long-term prospects, Danny Stutsman, probably a high character guy that works really hard, high motor. the sky's the limit. Like I think you guys were saying earlier. I mean, in 2 to 3 years, he could be a name that you'll be seeing making multiple plays on a Saturday afternoon after his redshirt year. I do think that they're going to take advantage of that. But unless he flashes in fall camp, he very well might get in the rotation. I just think there's just a lot of talent. And granted, if Caleb Kelly does get hurt, as I'm knocking on wood right now, I hope the kid doesn't, because his run of unfortunate luck has been ridiculous. But
he's got to be like 24 now.
yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think he played with Baker.
He was class of 2013.
Yeah.
He's old. He's your age. Yeah, he's 26.
Yeah. So, barring any injuries, they always happen, he might be contributing this fall. But I think if everything in an ideal world, he maintains his redshirt year, we might be able to see him play against Western Carolina or Tulane or Nebraska. But that might be about it. So, I don't know. I think it's really bright, and I think that's someone that a lot of schools are going to regret passing on. Or regret passing on him. So, you guys have anything to add with him, or any final thoughts? No? All right. Well, if you hadn't already, make sure to go check out the other Hoodats. We really enjoy making these videos. We try to research them as much as we can, watch some film, really give you guys our input and what we really think of them. We would really appreciate it. And if you hadn't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We release these every Monday, and we release another video or two a week talking about recruiting. And obviously now we're about a month out from the football season starting, a little over a month. Our number of videos are going to start increasing, better content or more content that's more relevant to the current football season and what's going on, rather than just recruiting. It's going to be a really fun year. And we've got a lot of stuff that we're going to be covering for you guys week in, week out. So make sure to comment, let us know what you guys think. But thank you guys.